Thanks very much, Micah. It's fantastic to be here. So I want to start by introducing you guys to the person that I think may be the most effective digital activist in the world today. This is Anna Hazare. Anna Hazare is a 75-year-old Gandhian Indian anti-corruption activist. He's probably the least likely digital activist you could conceive of. He uses very traditional organizing tactics like hunger strikes, and he's been working for decades to organize around issues of social justice and economic justice in India. In 2011, he ran a huge national campaign around the issue of corruption in India. And as you know, as Ben referred to, corruption's a major hotspot issue in India, and he ran a campaign to pass a comprehensive national bill for corruption. So he became a real lightning rod figure, and as part of that work, he started experimenting with mobile organizing. Because, of course, in India, that's where people are. They're not on broadband internet connections by and large. And he wanted to reach beyond the upper middle class to the people who are actually most affected by corruption every day. So Hazare does this, and the first thing he does is he does what most of us would do. He says, send us a text message in support of the campaign. He produces a short code. He says, text this short code if you support me. He gets 80,000 texts, which is fine, respectable. I think we'd all think that was pretty decent. Mobile organizing is hard. But then he decides to try something different. He says, how are people actually using mobile phones in India? And all over the developing world, not just in India, there's this really interesting aspect of mobile culture that would feel alien to many of the people in this room. And that's the idea of the missed call. So in places like India, throughout sub-Saharan Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, people use missed calls to avoid any phone charge while also communicating a message to each other. So if I'm dating someone and I just want to let them know that I miss them, I leave them a missed call. If I'm late for the coffee shop where I'm meeting you, which I often am, I leave you a missed call. And it's a whole culture. It has all sorts of different terms like flashing, beeping, phishing in different countries that you go to. So Hazare says, OK, let's try this. You know, this is a total shot in the dark. He says, how about you leave me a missed call? So he gets this number. He says, if you support me in my anti-corruption campaign, call me at this number. Hang up, and then I'll have your number. So seems crazy, right? So guess how many missed calls Anna Hazare gets? 35 million missed calls. Now, I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a while, and I've been associated with some organizations which are seen as having gotten pretty big numbers of people to participate. That is the largest single action that I am aware of any kind digitally. That is an absolutely remarkable number. That eclipses the number of individuals that are involved with the largest platforms in the world right now. So at Purpose, we saw this and we thought, damn, this is really interesting. And we'd been plugging away on attempts to organize people in the global south for a while and never cracked anything like this scale. So we thought, what would it be like if we built a tool that enabled us to do this? So I might add that one thing that was very interesting was that the 35 million missed calls didn't just stay in the world of mobile telephony. Using that, and using a pretty rudimentary hack, Hazare was able to go back to those 35 million people and turn out huge crowds in offline protests pushing this major bill, including this huge 200,000 person protest in Delhi. So he seamlessly was able to use the online and the offline using this technique, which I'll talk about why it works so well here in a moment. So we decided to build this thing called CrowdRing, and the idea of CrowdRing is it's a way to create a missed calls campaign anywhere, in any language, from any country, so you can try to launch these kinds of actions yourselves. And Manu, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, because he had trouble at the US border coming in from his homeland, he's from Rwanda, is going to tell you by video just a little bit about the mechanics of how we built CrowdRing.
In building CrowdRing, we worked with campaigners to understand what their needs were from an application that could harness the power of missed calls. To put this all together, we worked with a team of UX designers and developers from ThoughtWorks, built on Ruby on Rails, easily accessible through a web browser. It had to be an easy-to-use application. It eliminated the need to work with and deal with carriers in every country. Right now, we have relationships with carriers in 83 countries, and campaigner can launch a campaign in one of those countries in real time just with a click of a button. When dealing with measurable campaigns, CrowdRing is built with an analytics dashboard that gives a campaigner a view into how many people are calling at any given point in time. And these dashboards can be actually embedded into any website, making it live and dynamic to show the public. CrowdRing allows for SMSs to be triggered by participation. So if you place a missed calls, there is an automated response telling you, thank you for participating. But more than that, those messages can be sent targeted based on language groups, region, and so forth. We've tested CrowdRing in India. We've tested CrowdRing in Kenya.
So what Manu and his amazing team and the folks at ThoughtWorks were able to do was take what was, when Hazare had it, the world's largest CSV file, a 35 million person CSV file, and turned it into something that any campaigner could use and did all of that complex negotiation with the telcos. So it's pretty cool. So this is CrowdRing in action. I want everybody to get out their phones, which is a dreadful thing to do at PDF, because I'll lose you forever. But get out your phones, dial this number right now. Don't worry, don't worry. You guys are a tough crowd. Dial the number right now. You're going to get an engaged signal. Hang up when you get that engaged signal. And then within a few minutes, you'll receive a text message that will have included you in the campaign. Yeah, that's good. Hang up. All right, good. You'll get a text message in the next few minutes. So this is CrowdRing in action right now. So in Nairobi, right now, there is a campaign that an organization called The Rules, which is an organization that Purpose Incubated about global inequality, is running. It's a really complicated issue. It's an issue about taxes and tax justice. So how do you communicate that simply and use CrowdRing to do it? So today in Nairobi, and this is literally unfolding in the last few days, if you can believe it, there are people such as garbage collectors who are going door to door on their rounds explaining this campaign, which is about a tax that would disproportionately harm the poor. And they're going around running these, having these conversations in Kenya. This is a photograph from yesterday at a football stadium where campaigners are going with the immediacy of the mobile phone and the ability to connect with them immediately, and they're going explaining the issue because the phone is right in their hands and that they can actually have that conversation immediately. It enables a whole new level of online to offline immediacy and scale. So this is a couple other ways we're trying to crack this problem beyond CrowdRing. This is Brazil, this is Rio. We incubated a movement called My Rio, a citizen participation movement in Rio. And we figured out that in order to engage what's called in Brazil Class C, people from the lower middle class, the emerging middle class, we needed to find a way to give people access to decision makers directly. So people were angry, they were motivated to act, but they didn't know who the right person to reach was. And that was a major deterrent in the user research that we did. So we created this thing called Pressure Cooker, and this is a girl who used this tool, which was a tool that enables you to geolocate, you identify the right decision maker to target, you launch a campaign. 11-year-old girl created a campaign to try to save her school from demolition to make way for an Olympic changing room, which is the kind of thing that's happening all over Rio now as development is sort of upending places in Rio. So that's the story of Via. Now, what we then did is we saw that this campaign was getting a lot of traction and was getting kind of interesting. So we built this very cool website to kind of blow it up and turn it into something iconic. We fixed a webcam on the school because we were told that demolition was imminent. And we asked people to sign up with their mobile phones to become citizen guardians of the school. So basically what you did is you would go to the website, you would check. If there was any evidence of bulldozers, you'd left your mobile phone, so you got a text message as soon as there was news of demolition so that people could rush to the school, form a human barrier to protect the school. Now, just the idea of that, the idea of people using this mobile technology, getting the text, rushing in, of course, scared the bejesus out of the mayor of Rio, and he agreed to stop the demolition of the school and to a more participatory process for this kind of work. So why does all of this stuff matter, guys? I think it matters for pretty big reasons. Because the extraordinary potential of not just organizing the latte sippers in New York, but actually organizing the hundreds of millions, the billions of people who are most impacted by injustice, which is not something that most online organizing has cracked. This has huge democratizing potential. If the countries that we're talking about could develop in this way, I think that could mean a very different development pathway and a very different world and very different rules than the kinds of rules that we've been living by. So what we've done at Purpose is we've tried to put this together into a platform. And we've just released and chucked on GitHub, which is very exciting, a new open source platform, the world's first open source, multilingual, internationalized platform to do this kind of work. And the idea is that we're trying to connect everyone from a person in Senegal with a first-generation smartphone with a person in New York with the very fanciest HP slate. And so that's a very exciting connection. Because what it potentially gives birth to is a new kind of global or transnational solidarity, where a person in Uganda who's fighting against a bill to make being gay subject to the death penalty can be supported by a person in Panama who might be using a first-generation phone. So we're organizing people everywhere, which means we have US groups who've just joined the platform, like Fight for the Future, and we have small NGOs in India who are also using the platform, and the aim is to bring them together. So we need your help to build this. It's open source, which means we need you to do crazy stuff with it. And as you do that, think about the incredible democratizing potential of this. Think about what it might mean if the hundreds of millions of people who are pushing out of poverty, entering the middle class, who are doing that with mobile phone in hand, actually have tools to be politically assertive in entirely new ways and to form solidarity with those of us here who can make these things into big global issues. So thanks very much for your time today.